Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Disney's Lilo and Stitch. Sometimes family isn't perfect. That doesn't mean they aren't good. Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast. My name is Nate, and this is our spoiler-free review for Lilo and Stitch. Special thanks, as always, to our wonderful friends at Disney Studios Canada for inviting us to see the movie early for review. If you're joining us for the first time, we are Geekcentric, a podcast celebrating the world of movies, TV shows, games, and all things geek-centric. Joining me for this spoiler-free review is my family, my Ohana. First up, unlike Pudge the fish, he can't predict the weather, and he is a fan of tuna. He's Justin, the laser blasting Lawrence.
Pew pew. That's my laser blasting noise.
You're pewing all over, bro. You were pewing tears in the theater.
I usually
today.
pew in churches too.
How long have you been a dad now? Oh my gosh. Listen, I don't know if you can crash any harder than that, but crashing in next to him, he's a furry bundle of chaos that loves to hit the waves. He's Darcy, the deep space Hawaiian hoppin' Hudson.
You make it sound like I know how to surf. I've never been.
You look like a guy that would know how to surf, though.
Like Darcy.
I've tried. I can't stand up on it. I have no balance.
Yeah, I would totally. I could see you in the bodysuit, holding the big board with the like ankle thing, and
the hair just blowing.
Exactly.
In the sand,
he has like
the
different classes for
air.
surfing, and then
Beautiful.
he's got that pose.
Dude,
I'm sure he could shred.
Darcy,
Totally.
if we could just come up with your life goals, I think we should. We're gonna make that's your life goal, okay?
Surfing,
we're deciding
really?
right now. Yep.
Because where we are in Ontario, we have so much opportunity for that, right?
Lake Ontario, bro. When those waves are crashing, I can see it. You know what the next best thing is for Canadians? It's wakeboarding.
There you go.
Wakeboarding
True.
is the equivalent to surfing, essentially.
Get out to the cottage.
Yeah,
It's
it's the Canadian, bumpkin lifestyle. You can't shred the waves, but shred some currents, I guess. I don't know.
I'd love to get out to the cottage with the Huddies. But guys, listen, we've made it. We first saw live action Stitch revealed at D23 last year in a big way. And now we're seeing him again on the big screen. And almost 23 years from the original Lilo and Stitch film. How are you guys feeling to have Stitch back in your lives? Has he ever left?
I mean, he's a big fixture at the parks. You always see him and all the stuff down there, so he's really never left my mind. But it's really cool to see him come back in such a big way, and I think it really lands hard this one. So, yeah, I'm happy he's back.
Yeah.
I like. For me, I think 2002. I was saying this to someone else at the press screening. 2002 when Lilo and Stitch came out, it was like post Disney Renaissance, if you will. It was kind of like it was moving towards that trajectory of more 3D animated. I think 2D animation was kind of on its ends, and I think there was a bit of more of a cult following to Lilo and Stitch, and now it's definitely blown up, like you said, Darcy. The presence of Stitch at the parks and just the importance of him, and even just in even just Japan, you know what I mean, and in East Asia, the importance of Stitch. Like, he has become such a important character within the Disney family. So it feels very fitting to be returning to this character in a live action form. It seems like well overdue, given the fact of how many other live action projects got greenlit before this one. For me though, really the connection to Lilo and Stitch was my wife. This is her all-time favorite film. Yeah, and I understand why. I have come to appreciate it. I've watched it a million times, not with her, but with the next generation, my daughter, who also really loves the film and connects with it. So to see what this film was able to accomplish and taking from the original and just moving forward, like you said, Darcy, this one, nailed it. It did a really great job. It hits hard.
Well, and I think this one hits hard, and I think the original one hit so hard and stuck with so many people. I know for myself as a kid, I think the golden era of Disney movies. You're right. Then we moved into sort of the early 2000s, and those movies for a short period of time before we moved into the more 3D animated Disney films really, really stuck. And I think a big part of that, and I think what's so special about the original Lilo and Stitch film was that it had such a wonderful blend of that goofy Disney whimsy, charm mixed with real world situations that Lilo and Nani find themselves in. And it you could feel the authenticity in that movie. And you really do feel it, I think, still present in this live action remake.
Yeah, and with that, I think that this film does highlight how much in that animated film they kind of scaled it back. Like they didn't go as hard as they could have because it's obviously an animated film for kids. So they just had a lot of these elements in place to sort of set up. But this one just goes deeper with it, and I think it can afford itself to because it is live action. It is for almost multiple generations, and I think it's being more literal and more obvious in what its themes and topics are, which was already in the original, right? Like it was already relevant there. It's just now it's really coming to the forefront here.
Yeah, and I think that's again why the story has stuck around for so long,
yes.
and become so much bigger than it originally was. Let's get to this review, and I want to start with the synopsis for this film. A live action reimagining of Disney's 2002 animated classic Lilo and Stitch is the wildly funny and touching story of a lonely Hawaiian girl and the fugitive alien who helps mend her broken family. Directed by Dean Fleischer Camp, the Oscar-nominated filmmaker behind the animated feature film Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, the film stars Maia Kealoha, Sydney Elizabeth Agudong, Billy Magnuson, Tia Carrere, Hannah Waddingham, Chris Sanders, with Courtney B. Vance and Zach Galifianakis. Lilo and Stitch crash lands into theaters May 23rd, 2025. So, kind of as I said at the top there, it's been almost 23 years since the original film came out. And like you said, Justin, you were chatting with our friend Andrew after we left the screening about how this was kind of the last of the traditional Disney animated films. I think we had Treasure Planet and Brother Bear just afterwards, and then we didn't really get to see that traditional animation again until one other time with Princess and the Frog. Disney, bring this traditional animation back. We'd love to see it, but here we are now with the first of the 2000s Disney era films being remade. I wanted to get into the look and feel of the movie, throwing it to both of you guys. What did you think of the look and feel of this new live action Lilo and Stitch?
I think this live action adaptation really does a remarkable job of sort of translating that world into live action, and it does it in the most honest and authentic way. It's not about like a CGI green screen fest of trying to create these environments. It's shot on location. It's very practical, and that is exactly why Dean Fleischer Camp was brought on to do this film. It had to feel authentic and real because the story, as we were talking about, is rooted in stuff that feels real, that is real situation. So his practical approach to how shooting with CGI and characters and the way they used puppets and mannequins on set as the marker for Stitch, that helped to create more of a real sense of authenticity in the performances, but also in the look and feel. Like the cinematography felt very authentic and natural, especially the way things were lit. There was nothing that felt really out of place. And there are times, like we were talking about it after, that the CGI may not have landed. It does look a little CGI, but I think where it counts and where they put their focus, it worked. It worked really, really well. And that can be seen in Stitch. He looks incredible. He's adorable. He's cute. He's fluffy. He's expressive. He maintains that spirit of the original character and his look and feel of just how he's so chaotic, and they made him feel really attuned to this world. Like they adapted him really, really well. And even just the whole opening sequence of when we're introduced, it does kind of follow beat for beat parts of the original, but seeing all of these different creatures, it was like creatures galore. It all looked really, really well done. And I think that was probably some of the most CGI parts of the film was the intro. And after that, it just kind of melds into this beautiful Hawaiian setting with just, very the ocean and the lush, the very visual lush, so foliage, and just everything about it just felt so real, and even just the cultural elements of how they infuse that into it. So it's just all around, I think this movie just killed it from that aspect of look and feel.
Yeah, and I think the it made me want to go to Hawaii really bad. Like I already wanted to go to Hawaii really bad and live Darcy's dream of becoming a surfer dude. But now I want to even more. And I think, one of the big things with these live action remakes, and especially when we talk about the look and feel, how does it translate from the original? Are they going to do too many of those shots that are just a recreation of the original? And we definitely do get a decent amount of those shots, but we also do get a lot of wonderful moments, like you said, Justin, that are capturing the beauty of Hawaii and the culture, and just the ways that it's sort of creatively, the camera work allows you to follow Stitch as well in this movie is really, really fun. There are a lot of moments where, because Stitch is a CG animated character, they were still able to capture him in a way that didn't feel, it didn't take me out of it at any point in time. I was completely grounded in the idea that this little blue alien, puppy that's not a puppy, was running around, and we were able to sort of capture him in a very real way.
Yeah, they totally nailed bringing Stitch into the 3D world for sure. It was flawless for most instances when he's, again, causing all the chaos. You can really believe that he's there doing those things. And again, that's kind of half the charm of Stitch, is his destructive nature. So capturing it so perfectly, and then again, blending it with that, adorable, cute dog that we fell in love with in the first movie. They brought it over beautifully. And again, all the characters too. What I love about the live action films is that they go the route of turning them into actual people who have wardrobes and don't wear the same thing for the entire movie. So it was cool to see throughout the movie the nods to the original outfits that the characters wore throughout it and stuff like that. So again, it was very much an homage to the original while updating and refreshing and adding stuff that needed to be added. And again, the look and feel went a huge way of making it feel like a seamless fit to that, Hawaiian nature that the first movie captured so well.
And just on the topic of the CG specifically, right? Because I think that's a big thing for a lot of people coming into this movie. I know we all had some, after the rough first draft of Sonic the Hedgehog, we all maybe had a few fears about how are they going to approach a live action Stitch. And I know there were, supposed leaked images originally, and everyone's like, oh, that doesn't look good. And of course, that wasn't legitimate. But I think for the most part, it works. And I think, to your point, Justin, like you said, it works where it matters most. This movie is called Lilo and Stitch looks incredibly impressive. The animation work on him, the texture of his fur when it gets in contact with sand, when he's soaking wet, his little wet nose, you can just feel it. You could imagine booping it and you feel it on your fingers. He is incredibly well animated. I think there are moments with the Grand Councilwoman and moments with Jumba at times that I was like, wow, this doesn't look too great. It looks very Disney Plus. But again, where it matters was with Stitch, and he works so well in this live action.
Yeah, I think for Jumba and Bleakley?
Bleakley. It's his legal name.
Yes, yeah, that's his legal name. I think they both look like very, very much like the animated versions of their characters, and I think they did a good job with that. But yeah, some instances with them, it did feel a little like it wasn't as refined as some of the other moments, and even with the Grand Master. Is that her
Grand
name?
Councilwoman?
Yeah, Grand Master. The Grand Councilwoman. Yeah, the Grand. Yeah,
different character. Yeah.
Different character. The Grand Council. Like there's that sequence that is meant to feel like the end of the film from the original, and it kind of looked like it was all kind of stitched
looked
together.
A little weird.
Yeah, it just looked like it that's where it started to really show, and I'm not sure if that was something that was not necessarily as refined, or there was a reshoot that was involved in that. But yeah, I think as you said, the detailing in Stitch is where it really counted. Like the wet nose, the boogers, like all the stuff with his snot
dripping out of him and
like,
stuff.
Yeah, like that. There's that iconic moment where he like uses his tongue to pick his nose, and they did that in the movie, and it was awesome, right?
Yeah.
So, and it looked gross. It looked grosser in live action than it did in animated naturally. So I think it's a success. But this is way better than the dwarves we got in
Oh my gosh.
in
Yeah.
Snow
Oh,
White,
yes.
right? Like I feel like this is like leaps and bounds better, and I think it makes more sense in how they approached it, and it's all thanks to Dean and his approach to, I think, just the practical nature of making this all work.
Yeah, and I do want to mention the music. I think is such an important part of the original film. Dan Romer here did the composition for this, and it kind of I think it really very much was like a if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. Where I know he worked with a lot of the music from Alan Silvestri from the original, but even in the original, I think outside of Hawaiian Roller Coaster Ride or Hound Dog by Elvis or Aloha Oi, I which we do get in this film as well, and there's a very beautiful moment that brought me to tears with that song again. But I can't really recall any of the other music, even in the original, that I was looking forward to in this. Besides, again, some of that licensed music or traditional Hawaiian music. So I think the way that it was done, and maybe for some of the action sequences, it blended so seamlessly that it wasn't something that really stood out. But I think it, as far as working with the music that was already there, I think he did a great job. And I also want to shout out I Am Tongi of American Idol fame, who did a great job with Hawaiian Roller Coaster Ride and absolutely did justice to that original song and the original film. So shout out to him. It was great. I've been listening to it on Apple Music a little bit as I've been chilling out and writing notes for this review. But yeah, I think the music was it did what it was supposed to do.
Exactly, and they just needed to hit that intro song, which I think is, you mentioned it, is Himele no Lilo. Is that what it's called? Did you mention that one?
I did not, but you're right. That would be one that was
That was the intro
as well.
song,
Yeah.
and then
where you see the fish. Basically.
Yes, exactly, and the Hawaiian roller coaster
Yeah.
ride. Like they had to nail those two, I think, in a lot of ways, to like in terms of placement, and then everything else surrounding it was obviously Elvis or popular music, but there was some new stuff that really found, or not new stuff, but adaptations of new things that found its way in there, and I think again really hit home the cultural importance of the Lilo and Stitch and Hawaiian culture and so on. So yeah, I think it did what it was meant to do.
Yeah. And I think one of the big things coming into this as well is, and when we're talking about adaptation, is how are these characters going to be adapted? So I want to get into the characters and performances, and I want to start off with Maia Kealoha, who is absolutely such a joy. She is perfect as Lilo. Like, we talk about and this might be a little hyperbolic because she's so young and this is her first role, but I don't care. We talk about Hugh Jackman as Wolverine or, Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow. It's like Maia is Lilo. She is so perfect in the role. And I think even if you have a fraction of a heart, it's hard not to love her in this movie. And so much of that comes from her performance. And I think there were a few times where you can, and I was talking to you about this, Darcy, where you can kind of tell a little bit that she's emulating the original performance of Davy Chase in her inflection or her delivery, like watch the movie and then do this. But there are so many more times where it just felt so natural. Mm-hmm. She was just being a kid who likes to have fun. And so when you see Lilo on screen having fun, getting into this mischief with Stitch, I think Maia brings so many of those moments to life because she's probably legitimately, as a little kid, just having so much fun making this movie and playing this character. So she fits the role so well.
Yeah, 100%. She is Lilo personified. And again, they really lucked out with this casting. I wouldn't be surprised if she grew up watching Lilo and Stitch too, because she seems to know the character and just her antics very well. It's very close to home. And I think a lot of it comes down to, again, playing off of the people around her, which the cast, I think, across the board did a great job, building up that Ohana that she was relying on in the end of the film. So it was, great job from such a young actress.
Yeah, she's an unknown, as they would say, right? This is her first breakthrough role, and she is the emotional anchor of this film. I think she brings all of that charm, a sense of vulnerability, and the heart, and she brings so much heart in a way that just makes this reimagining feel like, as you said, Darcy, like a personified version of Lilo. It's just so alive. And yeah, I think I personally thought she captured Lilo's spirit without ever feeling like it was overtly imitation.
Mm.
There might have been those moments that I just wasn't necessarily, I didn't capture or think of, but I guess, yeah, to a certain degree, there must be some sort of influence that's there for her to kind of understand it. But it would be interesting to see if she has watched it, or if she did watch it, or if there was something that she was like, no, I'm not going to watch it because of this film. But given her background, and I think that it would be kind of integral to watch a Lilo and Stitch, given that I believe she is Hawaiian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
given that
from
her
Hawaii.
culture is Hawaiian and she is from Hawaii, I think, parents would probably show, yeah, you should watch this. This is this is a great way for you to kind of understand and connect with your culture in a different way, right? Even if it may not even at the time be entirely accurate. This is it's a good way for her to do it. But yeah, she was outstanding, and the heart of this film entirely.
Yeah, yeah, and Darcy, you mentioned, her Ohana, the cast of this film surrounding her, and I think the incredible chemistry from Sydney Elizabeth Agudong, who plays Nanny. What did you think of this version of the character of Nanny?
Well, I just like they managed to flesh out her character a bit more. Whereas we talked about in that first movie, they kind of danced around the themes that were setting up, her and Lilo's situation. This movie dives full on into it, and we really get to see her like bust out some serious acting chops as she's faced with the reality of maybe potentially losing her younger sister after what she's been through, and just the pressures of raising her. It was just, she did a fantastic job of, again, hitting those emotional highs and lows throughout the movie. And again, the bond between her and Mia is palpable, and you can really believe that they feel like sisters in this movie. So yeah,
Yeah.
really well done.
Yeah, it's so well said. Like, I think their chemistry is just, it's the driving force. It's the core of what sisterhood looks like. You know what I mean? Their dynamic is just so great. It feels so natural that they look and sound like sisters. And I think,
Hmm.
like you're saying, like, I think what I appreciated the most about this film is how much more of Nani's story is really fleshed out, and it's grounded in this sense of grief and this potential loss, if you will, of losing Lilo. And that's on full display. They were flirting with that in the animated film, and they never really went the distance with it. But I think here, again, given the fact that it is kind of, it would, given it that this is live action, there's more of a desire to want to push the boundaries and really lean into those moments, and lean into that story, and they do it really well. And I think Sydney, again, she just gives such a grounded emotional performance that just ranges. Like, I think she did an outstanding job, and the two of them together is what was really where they shine.
Yeah, it's you mentioned Maya's the heart, and I think them together is really where the magic really kind of comes out in this movie. And there's so many moments with them together that just, I'm getting misty eyed thinking about it. But I think Sydney played Nani in a way, like, Nani is not a mom. Right. And I think her performance makes it very clear in this. You like you said, Darcy, we get to see the depths of her acting in this. We get to see the frustration, we get to see the fear, we get to see the joy and the love, and it just sort of emphasizes how much Nani cares about her sister, but isn't actually able to take care of her in the way that she needs to, without some help, of course. And speaking of some help, or maybe some hindrance, Chris Sanders is here as Stitch. He's always been Stitch. He'll always be Stitch. Justin, what did you think of Chris coming back to voice this character?
Well, it seems like a no-brainer. You got to get Chris to come back.
Yeah.
I'm going to lean less on Chris and more on the performance of Stitch, and how his chaotic nature, and just he goes from chaotic to cute to just having these emotional moments. They did such a great job of animating this character in the live action space with real emotions. And I think Chris obviously leans into that. He leans into what the story's giving him, and really puts it all forward in a really honest way. But I think the performance of Stitch is what was really captivating and really interesting on top of Chris. I think the two they're like a synergy, right? You can't have one without the other. He's accredited to of being, this is his idea. This was based on the idea from Chris Sanders, right? So I think that like there's obviously a deep connection here, and for as much as we see Stitch, there's not as much talking from the character throughout the film, not I guess until like towards the end, because just like in the animated movie, he's figuring out the language, he's learning it along the way, and I think again they did a great job of that. So his performance was really about the grunts and the little voices and the little outbursts and so on and so forth, and I think he brought it all, which was just that pure chaotic joy that is Stitch.
Yeah, I mean, after 23 years, he's figured out how to nail almost every emotion Stitch has to offer and all the plethora of things we've seen Stitch appear in. But again, I think pairing that with, like you said, the animation we got for Stitch in this movie is incredible. Just the way that they captured that frantic energy, or the way he moves about and just kind of has that almost twitchy nature to him, and brought that from the 2D to 3D was incredible. It felt like you were watching like a truly fully realized 3D version of that animated Stitch, which is so cool.
Well, and there's things that in the, like you're just like you're saying, like in the animated original, you can do a lot in animation, but at the time, they were limited in terms of what they could express through Stitch's face. Whereas here with the CG, it just, even in his eyes, we talk about, I think we bring it up almost every podcast now, acting through your eyes. And I think with this CG version of Stitch, he did that. There were so many moments where there's just those really subtle, tiny movements that you notice in his eyes, and little moments that they give us with his character and his physicality that we didn't get in the original, that really did add so much to his character and to the story. I want to bring up, we brought them up earlier, but I want to bring up Zach Galifianakis as Jumbo Jukiba, Billy Magnuson as Wendy Pleakley. I think, it was interesting because originally I said this to you, Darcy, walking out, I was a bit disappointed with Zach Galifianakis as Jumba initially, just because you were saying too, he looks so much like the original animated character in his Jumba form, we'll call it. But when he does become his human form, it really clicked for me, and especially with Billy Magnuson as Pleakley, who is a scene stealer in this movie. There are so many times with the dynamic between them that works so well. I can't say every comedic moment hit exactly the same, but there were definitely a lot of laughs from them. And I love that Pleakley is so in love with the world of the humans. I love that they honored the original by having Billy dress up in so many different outfits, and just how excited he was. I think he's definitely on the sort of quote unquote villainous side of the story, but he's so excited about mosquitoes and sneezes. And so I really enjoyed him. And I think the way that they worked with his character and the way that they sort of altered him and Jumba to better serve this version of the story was really great.
Yeah, they were a blast to see together. Anytime they were bantering with each other, it was a great comedy pairing. Again, I will agree, it was jarring seeing Jumba and hearing Zach Galifianakis. Again, in Jumba's form, I was picturing more almost a David Harbour Russian accent, I guess. But getting to see, again, the banter we had between them was great, and the way they adapted them from the story. Removing Gantu from the story really allowed these two to have more of a reason to be there.
Yes.
And I really love that update to the story. Again, the first one we talked about almost being a bit too overstuffed, whereas this one, they shifted some characters around, added something, but everything feels deserved and earned, which is wonderful.
Yeah, it doesn't feel overly cluttered. I loved the casting of Zach Galifianakis and Jumba, and I love that they got rid of the Russian accent. It just didn't make any sense that he would speak Russian, let alone the fact that they speak English. It just doesn't make sense. But anyways, the reality is that he didn't have to have a Russian accent in the original, but they did that as like, oh, he's a mad scientist kind of like, shtick, right? So I get it, but like, yeah, I think that Zach Galifianakis surprised me in a lot of ways. Just how comedic, but also how sort of devilishly evil he could be. So he really did lean into that mad scientist mind frame. And yeah, Pleakley was a scene stealer, like you said. Like, he was absolutely hilarious. The way he fans over the human culture and just wants to be a part of it. And I loved it. It had me laughing quite extensively at moments. And I think at one point I laughed out really loud in the theater and no one else did. So that was a joke that landed for me, but no one else. But yeah, I think that they were a welcome addition to it. And like you said, getting rid of Gantu helps, right? Because Jumba is sort of the bad guy, right? Like he kind of is. Even though in the original he becomes their friend and they all like sort of live happily ever after, but here he is seen as the villain. And I think that was the smarter choice. We didn't need some sort of third act villain to come in like in the original movie. It was someone that has been there from the beginning, and we understand their motives, we understand their intentions, and it made a lot more sense from in the long run.
And I think to have them portrayed by real actors is a really great way to ground the story, but also at the same time, I mean, also, lessen your budget on CG
Focus
as well.
Sure, yeah. But I did
Yeah.
want to see Pleakley, rocking a wig and like
Sure.
checking himself out, being like, there's that moment in the animated movie where he like puts on the wig and he looks in the mirror and he's like,
so
I look
good.
so good. And I was just like, you wear that wig, Pleakley.
Yeah. And I think we get a little bit of that through some of the outfits that Billy Magnuson wears, but I also think the physicality that we get, I love the joke of like, you got the video that I sent you about walking, right? And just how to walk like a human. They're falling over. I think it's great when physical comedy can be used, especially in a family film, because it's something that everyone can laugh at, even if it's just Justin laughing very loudly. Hannah Waddingham, obviously we love Hannah Waddingham. We're big fans of her work in anything that she does. But I will say, like, if you're listening to this, if you remember how much of the Grand Councilwoman you got in the original film,
it's the
that's
same
what you
amount.
should expect. Yeah,
honestly, it's like it's great that she's in it, but she's not really in it, right? She's voicing a character that she sounds like, right? Like that's why they casted her, right?
Well, she also took the role on apparently for her daughter, and so like to hear your mom as this epic character that's cool. Would probably be pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Tia Carrere, Miss Kakoa, coming in as a new character, Miss Kakoa, alongside Courtney B. Vance as Cobra Bubbles. Darcy, what did you think of kind of the adaptation of Cobra Bubbles and then bringing in Tia Carrere as from the legacy of her voice work as Nani?
Yeah, so this is where I mentioned, adding a character, and it worked and it made sense perfectly. Her addition as the council worker in the situation makes a lot of sense, and then allowed Cobra Bubbles as a CIA agent almost to stand on his own and really provide those two very opposing roles, which didn't really make sense in the first one, that he was they kind of alluded to him being this badass agent or whatever, and it was only at the end they reveal it. Whereas this one, right from the get-go, you understand they're from two different sides of the story and are approaching it from that matter. And I think they both did a great job.
Yeah, it was so smart splitting up that character, right? Like, it wasn't believable in Lilo and Stitch that Cobra Bubbles was a social worker, because he dressed in black and he looked like a CIA agent.
And he had Cobra tattooed on his hand.
Exactly, right? So I'm glad that they made that change. And they also brought in someone like Tia Carrere, who is again, we were talking about this after. There's such a meta quality a meta quality to this story, where Tia Carrere, the voice of Nani, the original voice of Nani, is now here as a mentor and a guiding light for this Nani. And they're just this idea of, deepening the themes of what they were talking about or what was going on in the original animated film. They're deepening that by giving more importance to Miss Kakoa and what she's doing and how she's driving guidance and giving support to Nani, which in the original movie she never had, right? She was really struggling and trying to figure it out. She had people around her like David who were trying to help her. But at the end of the day, this again, you get more of that sense of Ohana and family. And I think adding her and adding another character, Tutu, if I'm not mistaken, Another great addition. It just helps to, again, affirm this theme of family and the importance that it has. And it's not just about the family that you have, that you're born with, or you're born into, but it's that found family, it's that community, that I think is so integral, and that was really on display with additions of like Miss Kakoa and Tutu. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Well, yeah, and I think with someone like Tia Carrere, like I think she is she's so lovely in this film, and I think there's that element of like and I was thinking this going into it, with like the good cop bad cop sort of nature of the character of Cobra Bubbles, and
Yeah, that's true.
I think with Courtney B. Vance, I would have liked maybe a little bit more of him. I would have liked him to maybe have a little bit more to do. I felt like maybe they sort of went a little bit further with Tia and her character, then, and they could have maybe scaled that or balanced that a little bit. But I will say, for a character like Cobra Bubbles, I think Courtney B. Vance nailed the stern attitude, but then like his name is Cobra and then Bubbles. So his name is literally his character. He's a harsh, stern, scary Cobra, and then he is soft Bubbles. And I still think we do get that from him throughout this film. But you mentioned Tutu. I need to bring up Tutu. Tutu, Amy Hill. I loved Tutu. Tutu comes rolling in on a four-wheeler in this movie, and she rolled right into my heart, and I absolutely loved her. I think Amy Hill and Kaipo Dudoit, who is David in this film, do such a great job, because like you said, we're getting even more of a presence of an Ohana in this film, and I think it helps to emphasize and sort of push one of those original themes from the original animated film.
Yeah, she was a delight to see. A lot of times I'm laughing at her just as much as I'm laughing at Pleakley, because she was
Yes.
also a scene stealer. Some of her line delivery and just the facial expressions she can do just fit the tone of this movie so well. And again, David was just a great translation from screen. Again, you get the dumb, lovable boy next door, and he's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He
Yeah. And I
crushes
mean,
hard. You see you see him crush hard on
oh
Arnie
yeah,
though,
yeah,
right?
he doesn't he doesn't have a lot of riz, that this
no,
David guy. But speaking of David, I will just mention, because I mean Tia Carrere is in the film. The original David, Jason Scott Lee, is also
Yeah,
in this film, makes
he's
a
the waiter.
cameo in the film as
Yeah.
he's
Oh,
the
sorry, he's the
manager at the
owner.
Luau.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Blue Owl. Yeah.
So keep your eyes peeled. You'll see him. It was delightful to see him in
Also,
here. Mhm.
on that note,
Oh.
keep your ears open for Jenny Slate.
Oh,
That's all I'm gonna
really?
say.
Which
Yeah.
makes sense. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm interested to, you got to tell me after, because I don't know if I caught it. But let's kind of as we're rounding things out here, we're talking about the all the wonderful ways in which they adapted this movie, the story, the pacing. Again, we'll keep things spoiler free in terms of the major changes that they might have made. But I mean, it's the same movie for the most
Yeah, it's the
part.
same. Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of dive in, and I think, like I mentioned before, in terms of the look and feel, like my number one issue with these Disney movies, and I think that's the same issue for a lot of people, are these reimaginings, is the element of, besides money, what's the point in creatively doing the shot for shot live action retelling of these stories? And I'm so happy that with this story, and like we've been bringing up, there are so many moments. There's so many moments that are, subtly changed. And I think, the word smart, I wrote probably 8 or 9 times in my notes as I was taking notes for this movie, of just like, oh, that's a really smart choice, or that's a really smart decision. And I think, the attention to detail in the story, and really thinking on it, of like, why did they make that change? Why did Dean Fleischer Camp decide to have this character in this situation instead of this character? And when you really think about it, it makes total sense. And I think it's that level of intentionality and heart that comes through Dean Fleischer Camp that really helps to emphasize these themes of sisterhood and Ohana, that really, really make this story work as well as it does in an adaptation. But for you guys, what did you think of the adaptation? How did the pacing work? What did you think?
Yeah, again, the way they adapted that story and again kept everything that was integral to the overall arc of the story while adding things to give more meaning to characters surrounding Lilo and Stitch, I think it was a really good decision. Up until that third act, where it feels very much like the original animated movie, where it
Mhm.
just kind of accelerates to an end, where you kind of just that's the kind of the case with a lot of movies nowadays. Unfortunately, the third acts always suffer, but even the changes they made for that were very welcome and appreciated. So I do like how they brought the story forward and made again fleshed out things that needed fleshing out.
Yeah, I think like what's great about this film is that it keeps the bones of the original, but like this adaptation just adds all the thoughtful modern touches that you would expect from a reimagination, just to amplify its core messages. And
Mhm.
Ohana being obviously the biggest message, and just why that feels relevant for today, but also going deeper. The story, which wasn't written by Dean Fleischer Camp, but right, it was written by Chris Bright. He has a middle name that is I can't say,
It's okay.
and Mike Van Ways. I think they approached this project or this story with the right amount of adaptation
Mhm.
intertwined into it, and I think that's on full display. But where Dean steps in is again like is it's how it's shot, from that practical nature and the marriage between the CGI and shooting on location, but also like you said, to amplify some of those core emotional moments, and really give attention to them, which I think is on full display in a lot of ways. Because this film, while it is about Ohana, it dives deeper into themes of like grief and sisterhood, and like I was
Mhm.
saying before, like found family. And I think this version just this doesn't shy away from that. It deepens its focus and really goes for it and hits those emotional beats. And I think that's what it is, and that's what makes it feel entirely special and fresh from
Mhm.
the original. Do you know what I mean? Like it does. And I'm okay with certain moments being a shot for shot sort of retake of the film. It's how they can do things differently along the way that really matters, that really makes the difference. And I feel like this really understood what it needed to do. It needed to feel updated and for today, with what's the same messages, new messages as well, that were already kind of in the original, but just going deeper with them and just amplifying it all with the idea of heart and sisterhood, and the emotional beats that exist within it. The other thing too is I think, like you mentioned, Darcy, I think the pacing for the most part is solid. It is that third act that really just suffers, and it feels very similar to the original, where it's a mad dash to the end, and to just kind of wrap things up, because there might have been a runtime issue. In the animated, it was like, oh, this needs to stay under a specific time, so we need to like rush this through, and it kind of felt like that here. But I think again, like the emotional through line remains strong, like even with the pacing, and really does hit. And I don't know, this thing had me crying a lot more than the animated version. I don't
Mhm.
know about you guys, but I
Oh yeah.
was I was crying a
You're
lot.
also in a
And
different part of your life, though, as well, to consider,
yes,
right? I'm
I'm
sure you
menstruating, and
you
like
saw you saw you probably saw your little girl there a
for
few times
sure.
with Lilo, right?
Yeah, for sure. I also just see the idea of like, kids growing up and
Hmm.
wanting to feel, they can belong, and the whole opening sequence with her at her dance class, it just
Hmm.
hits different when you're watching it in live action and you think about your own kid. And
Hmm.
yeah, for sure, that is all there. But again, I think what this movie does is it doesn't just recreate what came before it. It just reminds us, as you said, Nate, why the story matters in the first place.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing that any reimagining should do.
Yeah. Well, let's get to our sort of final thoughts and score for this film, which we're going to be rating this film on a scale of 1 to 5 peanut butter sandwiches. Darcy, kick us off.
Yeah, I think this is by far my favorite live action remake Disney has done to date because of what they've changed, what they kept, just the way they adapted everything from that first movie and elevated it to what we got in this one. Ha! I got to use elevated for once. So as you guys, but I slipped it in there. Yeah, I loved it. It was so much more delightful than I was expecting because of the track record we've had with live action remakes, but the cast did such a good job of breathing new life into this story that I think it's well worth going to check out with your family because everyone will find something to connect to in this film, and it's delightful for that reason. And Stitch is just as cute and adorable and destructive as ever. And I think if again, why not go see that again? It's great. So that's a strong 4.5 out of 5 peanut butter sandwiches from me.
Wow, threw in an extra half peanut butter sandwich. Pudge
Yep.
ate the other half, I guess.
Oh yeah.
He didn't finish that one sandwich.
He was full.
He was full. He's a small fish. Justin, you're not eating peanut butter sandwiches, are you?
No, I'm just eating jam. I like
Okay.
jam sandwiches.
Nice.
I've grown to love them. So I'm allergic to peanut butter. So it's, it's either that or an EpiPen. No, I agree with Darcy. I think Lilo and Stitch stands out as Disney's best live action reimagining to date. We just had this year Snow White, and there were parts of it that I really enjoyed, and I liked the direction that they took with certain aspects of it. There was stuff that I definitely didn't like about it. And I think it really comes down to the approach of how these stories are told. And I think Dean Fleischer Camp was the perfect choice. Apart from, sorry, with a fantastic script that really does take things in a direction that honors what came before it, but really does push those themes more. Dean's able to come in here and just bring such a such a detailed approach to blending practical elements with CGI in a way that just keeps the story grounded while letting all of that heart shine. It's incredible. It really does find a way to really focus on the sisterhood aspect. And I think the ability to balance that visual charm and the emotional storytelling just brings the best out of this film. And I think, we talked about it, but Maia is just an absolute standout as Lilo. I think she delivers one of the best performances of the year so far, and I think it's It's accredited to, for her, best performances I've seen that just feels so authentic and there's so much warmth, there's just so much depth, and then you couple that with Sydney's performance of Nani and obviously Chris coming back as Stitch, and then the whole Ohana, the whole Ohana just comes together and makes this film really, really special, and it just stands out as just being one of the best. And like I was saying, this isn't just a retelling, it's a thoughtful, heartfelt celebration of everything that made the original so special, with these new elements to help, again, elevate.
Whoa. Am I gonna put that in my
elevate?
Elevate in my funnel?
It elevates, but it also it revitalizes and refreshes what was so special about it and goes deeper with it, and I think in the best ways possible. And yeah, this proves that the reimagining can work. There's been a long run of reimaginings, and some have worked and some haven't. And I think, like you said, Nate, when we were hanging out, Little Mermaid was probably one of your favorites, and it was definitely one of my favorites. But yeah, this is definitely now my favorite. I am also giving this one a 4.5 out of 5 jelly sandwiches.
Oh, switching it up.
I ain't doing peanut butter and jelly.
Bro, Pudge, I don't know how Pudge is going to feel, but we'll see. He might feel elevated. I think this movie, like you're saying, Justin, this is a great template going forward, I hope, for Disney to recognize that these adaptations definitely can work if you get the right people involved to carry out their vision. And I think Dean Fleischer Camp and Chris and Mike and the writing team and just the entire team behind this film did such a great job. And I think Dean, coming off of Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, which is so incredibly delightful, like we just been saying, he's the perfect choice for this adaptation. The cast is so wonderful. Lilo and Nani being so natural as these sisters in this broken family mended by this alien who's just looking for a place to belong. It's hilarious. You're gonna laugh. It's heartfelt. You're gonna, just like Justin was crying, I was crying. Darcy, were you crying?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Let's go. We all had a good cry fest. And I think there are moments with this new version of the story. Like I cried, and I was crying in moments where I wasn't expecting to cry. I was crying in some of these newer moments that really, really hit. And there's a very specific
That's
moment
exactly where I cried. Yeah.
Right. With Stitch's physicality that really did something to me. And I'm but I think go with your family, go with your friends, go with your found family. Just expect to have a really lovely time at the movie theaters. It's not perfect pacing wise. It's a little broken, but still good. Yeah, still good. I'm giving Lilo and Stitch a very solid 4 out of 5 peanut butter sandwiches. But that is it for our spoiler-free review for Lilo and Stitch. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to share your shots. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to share your thoughts with us on this movie or any of the movies or series we cover. And Justin, I'd like you to do a little hula dance for us and share the experimental ways in which our lovely listeners can contact us.
I haven't drinking enough to do a hula dance.
You were at a party yesterday. Yeah. Did you do any hula dances then?
No, definitely didn't do any hula dances yesterday.
No.
But you know what? Hula dance or not, I'll let you know. You can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or you can reach out to us on Twitter at geekcentricyt, or you can follow us on Instagram at wearegeekcentric and on TikTok at wearegeekcentric.
Yeah. I mean, one day, that's going to be your dream, Justin, I'm deciding, is to become a hula dancer. And Darcy, you're going to become a surfer. And I'm going to eat more peanut butter sandwiches. Keep in mind, we also have a ton of other great episodes covering the latest in movies and TV shows, including our recent spoiler-free reviews out now for Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts, HBO's The Last of Us Season 2, Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again, and Andor Season 2, which those last two, we also have spoiler-filled discussions out right now as well. Plus, we were in Japan. We've got our entire Star Wars Celebration recap out now that you can check out, where we dig into all the incredible announcements from Lucasfilm and Disney in Japan. We've also got some great interviews out now to check out, like our recent interviews with Tony Gilroy and Genevieve O'Reilly for Andor Season 2. And from Thunderbolts, we also have interviews with director Jake Schreier and stars Hannah John Kamen, Louis Pullman, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus with Justin. Justin, you absolutely killed it with those interviews. You did such a good job. But we're not done, as the hot geek summer is just... I'm getting hot. Going to Hawaii. We're getting hot in the summer. Put your sunscreen on. We're just getting started. We've got even more coverage for all things geeky, including some more coverage for Lilo and Stitch coming real soon. So be sure to subscribe either here on your podcast service of choice or over on YouTube at youtube.com/geekcentric. You can check out those interviews, those video interviews as well. Darcy, Justin, Ohana means family. Family means no one gets left behind. So thank you for not leaving me behind and joining me for this roller coaster ride of a review. And as we say, love ya.
Laters.
Peace.
You got to do the voice? Come on, guys. We practice this.
No.